reading action at the next meeting. I'm going to get to exciting things now. From board committees, the naming of a new elementary school. Connie Duncan, you are the chair of that committee.
I know, and I'm so excited, and I hope I don't cry or something, but if I do, I'm sorry. So tonight before us for consideration on first reading is a name for our new elementary school located near 102nd and Holdridge. A wonderful name. Ada Robinson was an amazing teacher at Clinton Elementary School. The stories from Mrs. Robinson's former students and community members reflected an educator who made connections to serve students and families well beyond the schoolhouse doors. The committee included myself as chair, Kathy Danick and Bob Browner from the school board, and from the community. And if you are here, please stand. Lynn Ayers, Tony Merritt, Todd Ogden, Marco Pedroza, Kim Roback, Ishma Valente, Milani Vene, Colette Yellowrobe. The committee followed the process outlined in board policy to solicit names from the community. More than 180 names were submitted by the community. The committee went through a process to narrow the list. We are fortunate to have so many well-deserving leaders in our community. Names that were brought forward include Ada Robinson, Leela Knox Shanks, Barbara Alice Way, Nancy Becker, and Ruth Ann Wiley. Committee members prioritized their choice, and Ada Robinson rose to the top of the list. I will say that I saw 96 different emails and things about Ada Robinson. Definitely the winner there. I would like to thank my committee for their time and thoughtful conversations. Attending tonight, which it looks like they may not be. Most important though, the most important person here is Ada Robinson, and I understand she's in the audience. Now, Ada, if you cry, I'm going to cry, and I can tell you right now that Dr. Standish can cry more than anyone in this room, so she's next. Oh, so Tammy Soper, Ada's daughter, is here, plus many other family members. But we have Robert Edens, I might have pronounced it wrong, sorry, a former student with us this evening, and he would really like to share his thoughts. And so I'm asking him to come forward to read his letter.
First of all, I'd like to say you got the name right.
Woo! We're going back and forth. Long E, short E, long E. Oh, Gloria's husband, who is it?
German name. Thank you. Okay. Not really good at this, so work with me here. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you and tell you the reason for suggesting the new elementary school to be named after my teacher, Ada Robinson. I first met Ada Robinson when I was in second grade at Clinton Elementary. I remember her warm smile and her greeting us in the hallway. I wasn't one of her students yet, but she learned my name. We moved yet again on to other schools in the district, from McPhee to Park to Hawthorne to Randolph. Sixth grade, I came back to Clinton. Ada was my teacher. By sixth grade, the abuse was worse than ever than it had ever been. I didn't have any physical marks to show I was an abused child, but abused nevertheless. I spent my life moving from one rundown property to the next, always waiting for the next eviction notice. Never staying put very long. Those 3-day eviction notices changes a child. You grab what you have to, but most of your stuff, your prized possessions, are just gone. So there I was, a sixth grader at Clinton Elementary, back at least to a school I had been before, back to a person who knew my name. This isn't a unique story for the children of Clinton. My story is like many who come before me and still come to this day. The difference in my story is that Ada Robinson was my teacher. She saw through the ratty clothes, the uncombed hair, the worn-out shoes. She treated me as I belonged. We expect a great education at LPS. But these educators need to do so much more than teach reading and writing. Sorry. This is exactly what Ada Robinson did that year. She taught me right where I was without judgment. She made me feel self-worth. She showed me respect and expected us to show her respect in return. I know it's hard to imagine, but my parents were not the show up at teacher conferences type of parents. Their goal was probably never to meet my teacher. This wasn't possible with Ada. She made herself known, even coming to my house for supper as she did with most of her students. I had never had a teacher in my home before. I had never had a teacher know my parents. She gave me a sort of self-confidence that could never be undone. School, for the first time, was a place I wanted to be, a place I knew I was safe, a place where they knew my name. It took me 5 more years to go to the police to report the abuse I was enduring, but without her in my mind, I would have never been able to tell my story, to stop it for me and for my younger brother. Fast forward 12 years. My wife and I rent a little rundown house in Clinton neighborhood. My son is starting Clinton Elementary. We walk through the halls and the memories of a time gone by come flooding back. Then I run into her, that teacher, the teacher. Miss Robinson comes up to me and gives me a great big hug, calls me by name, and asks me about my life. She remembered me. Out of the hundreds of students through her door since I had been there, she remembered me, and she was proud of me. Ada Robinson was proud of me. A child with my background that meant the world. We stayed in that little rundown house for years, refusing to move, making sure my children kept their prized possessions. When the time came that we could buy a home, we looked no place else than Clinton neighborhood, where my teacher was, where a few happy moments of my childhood existed. She knew each of my children's names, still knows them today, even though none of them were in her classes and she was not their teacher. Ada, you will never know the extent that year meant to me. But this is why her name needs to be put on a building to tell the kids like me, we will remember your name, just as Ada remembered mine. My name is Robert Edens, and I'm a Lincoln High graduate, class of 1992, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. Now, there really are no dry eyes in the whole audience. That is okay. We all cry very easy around here. Mrs. Robinson's daughter, Tammy, is here with us this evening. Tammy, would you like to say a few words or introduce some of your family members? We would love for you to do that. Thank you. And if Ada would like to come up and say a few words, we would absolutely love that, but it is not a big deal. You don't have to.
This is my uncle, Ada's brother from Omaha, Charles Mullen.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing this all out. My number one thing in my life was teaching young children. And I and the children, we had time to laugh, play, and sometimes we had time to cry. But one thing about it, our days were full of good learning, listening, and following directions. And sometimes they would come to school and may not have the two shoes on right. Well, I knew in the neighborhood who I could go to and say, I'd draw his little feet on a piece of paper and everything. Go take it to so-and-so, so-and-so. I need a pair of shoes and things like that. We were not what we called just Clinton Elementary School. We was a Clinton community. We all got along. We looked after each other. We helped each other. And, you know, what else could you say about that area? It was one big family. We used to call ourselves the Clinton family. Anytime somebody new moved in, we would be knocking on their doors, telling them who we are, what we do, and we are a family. So, thank you for letting me speak. Because I could go on and on, so I better go sit down.
Tammy, will you introduce your family, please?
So this is my uncle, my mom's brother, who lives in Omaha. She has a brother in Chicago and a sister in Chicago who couldn't be here today, COVID. And this is his wife, Paulette, so Charles and Paulette Mullen. And this is my baby brother back there, but since he's bald, I feel like he's older now. So this is Mario Robinson, Sergeant Mario Robinson, Lake Police Department. And then I'll skip over. This is my significant other, Anthony Riley. And then in between there, we have a ton of other folks, I think, that are here with Robert and his family. But back here is Margaret Walker, who was the principal at Clinton Elementary School for 9 years with my mom. And just, how many? 14, did you say? She was so excited. She contacted everyone she knew and said, tell them we need Ada. So she was so proud, and we're so glad she could be here. So this is my family.
Thank you so much. Well, Ms. Robinson, it is our honor and pleasure to name the new elementary school after you. Board, this will come before you next week for final approval. Thank you very much. I made it almost through, didn't I? Almost.
Are there any comments or questions or from the rest of the board? Mrs. Robinson? She can't see me because she's behind the podium. I just want to say, when I was in Clinton Elementary and watched you back in 2001, Margaret Walker took me to your classroom. And what I see at Clinton, and my daughter also was a school psychologist at Clinton for a few years, so what I know is the picture inside Clinton epitomizes what I believe good teaching is. A teacher with a smile on her face, an open heart, and children coming to learn. And I am so glad that this name has been selected for the new elementary school in Northeast Lincoln. This comes back in 2 weeks, next board meeting. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Okay, well, moving on. I'm sorry, I got to get my emotions in place. The next item is the evaluation and proposed compensation with the superintendent of schools. Board, you have before